Welcome to the world of tomorrow, listeners. This is Technology Blows, a techno-pessimist podcast hosted by yours truly, obsessive stick in the mud, Dan Slimman. And with me today is a man who is both a very talented comic and, even more importantly, my little nephew that I held in my arms when he was just an adorable, weeks-old, tiny little baby, Anderson Gronvold. Anderson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's the nepotism episode.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't subject a stranger to this kind of treatment. I mean, this is going to be brutal.
Right. No. This is a special hell for family.
Yes, Anderson, I'm very psyched to have you on the show. This is going to be a really fun one. But before we get started, do you want to let the listeners know where they can find your stuff online?
Sure. Yeah. LA-based comedian. You can just follow me on Instagram, Anderson_Gronvold.
Follow him. Follow Anderson on Instagram. He's very funny. He's always been very funny, and he will continue to be very funny. And Anderson, don't you agree that the listeners should also hit up my stuff online by following Tech Blows on TikTok and Blue Sky, and by giving this podcast a 5-star review in their podcast app of choice?
Yeah, I think that too.
Yeah, good. Glad we agree on that. So everybody go do those things. So now, Anderson, how much experience do you have with virtual reality?
You know, this is actually a very fitting episode to have me on, because the first time I ever encountered the Matrix was a poster in your bedroom when we stayed over. And so here we are now, 15 years later, talking about virtual reality.
Hell yeah. You saw that poster and you were like, oh, this guy knows some cool stuff.
Yeah, I was like, wow, it's amazing he can clean up so well after all the parties he must be having.
Yeah.
It seems like a really cool guy with the giant Matrix poster.
How many times that Matrix poster got me laid. So, yeah.
Shooting fish in a barrel with that one.
Yeah. So many guns in that movie, black jackets. Unfortunately, there are no black trench coats or cool guns in the virtual reality universe that we're going to talk about today. So I hope you weren't hoping. I hope you weren't hoping for that.
I was actually. That's very disheartening to hear.
Well, bye.
I'll continue the episode.
I don't have much experience personally with VR. One time I went to a VR like arcade thing in San Francisco with my team for work as like a team outing, and we played this we played a couple like co-op shoot 'em up games, which was reasonably fun. There was one with zombies. There was one with aliens. Pew pew pew, pretty cool. That's about the extent of my direct experience with VR.
I did. I went to an art museum in Tampa, Florida one time, and they had a virtual reality Salvador Dali exhibit. So you would go and then put on the glasses. Mind you, there's real art all around us,
right?
Paintings on the wall. But no, we go sit. We put on the virtual reality goggles in the middle of the art museum, and it's like a horribly rendered version of his painting with like the elephants and the giant like stick Nicole Richie legs, walking around, and it was such an underwhelming experience. We're like, can we just actually go see a real painting instead?
Right. Ah, man, that's so depressing. That's like, what can we do? Kids don't appreciate art. What can we do to make them appreciate art? And it actually kind of worked, because after the VR experience, you were like, I want to go look at some actual art.
Yeah, I think it was more of a psyop than actually trying to make VR good. But yeah,
pretty smart. I'm not a extensive VR user, but that hasn't stopped me from writing 3 episodes worth of hot air about VR. And that's right, listeners. This is the first 3-part episode of Technology Blows. What can I say? I just get the spirit in me when I start talking shit about Mark Zuckerberg. And when I look up from the page, I realize I've written 15,000 words and I haven't seen my family in days. So buckle up. So what what is this? What's this Horizon Worlds that this episode is about? It's a persistent virtual reality space created by Facebook as its bid to dominate the metaverse. And so in part one today, we're going to be talking about where this idea of the metaverse came from, why Facebook thinks the metaverse is the inevitable future of humanity, and how the company built up the infrastructure to launch this new era of human connection. So, Anderson, you ready to talk about, ready to jack into Mark Zuckerberg's Matrix with me?
Let's jack in. Let's jack in, jack off, do all the things.
We're going to jack every preposition you can think of and more. But first, I want to let listeners know that these episodes are about Facebook, and you can't talk about Facebook really without talking about sex crimes. So we're going to be talking some about sexual assault on these episodes. It's sexual assault happening in virtual reality, but that doesn't make it any less real or upsetting for people. So just putting that out there for you. If you'd rather not hear us talk about this, check out the Keurig episode. I'm pretty sure there's no sexual assault in that one.
What if there was? Then that'd be wild.
Yeah. There's other things that are gross and bad, but not that one in particular. So yeah, that's a little tip for you. So all right, Anderson, I'm ready. You're ready. Let's put on our hypno goggles and zap ourselves into the future. So the first thing to know about the metaverse is a vibe. It's a virtual experiment where people can live like a virtual life online that feels to some major extent real. People can feel physically present with one another despite being on opposite sides of the world. And there's no particular technology or set of technologies that is the metaverse, right? The metaverse is just that vibe of being in a place together, but you're really on the internet. And like most inventions that turn out to have been pointless and a bad idea, the metaverse originated in science fiction. So the first occurrence of the word metaverse was in Neil Stephenson's 1992 sci-fi novel Snow Crash. Snow Crash is a fun book. Have you read Snow Crash?
I've not familiar.
I reread it for this episode. It's really fun. I don't like it as much as I did when I was a teenage boy, but hey, there's a lot of things I don't like as much as I did when I was a teenage boy. Snow Crash takes place in a hyper-libertarian future where the United States has been carved up and belongs to a bunch of independent corporations. There's no government to speak of anymore, just huge corporations providing services like housing, education, law enforcement, even religion. The biggest church in Snow Crash by membership is called Reverend Wayne's Pearly Gates, and you can just go and swipe your credit card anytime for absolution. And so there's a bit in there that's a little bit prescient. The protagonist of Snow Crash, whose name is literally Hero Protagonist, works as a pizza delivery guy, and he lives in a 20 by 30 foot storage unit. So he has kind of like a depressing real world life. But in the metaverse, he's like a god. He puts on his VR goggles and he goes into the metaverse, and you can be anyone there. You can live anywhere, do anything, as long as you can write software that expresses your idea, because everything in the metaverse is made of software. So this idea of the metaverse, this idea where the only limit is your coding talent, obviously really appeals to nerdy teenage boys in the 1990s, like me. A lot of these guys read Snow Crash, and then they saw the World Wide Web emerging, and they're good with computers, and they say to themselves, "Hey, why shouldn't this be the way things are?" Right? I'm a special boy with a special mind. Why shouldn't I have everything I want because I can write software? I could be a hacker prince. I'm sure you can think of some people in the modern world who may have had this attitude.
But it's sounds like fantasy smut for incels. Would that be accurate?
It really does. It really does. Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those ideas where in the book, it's actually not good for this thing to exist, and the writer makes a point of it being bad. And people read it and they're like, oh, this is good actually. The world should be like this.
Mm-hmm. They
Um,
like you could get like the avatar depression that people had
yeah,
for this.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes, right. Ah, why can't everybody be blue and 9 feet tall and sexy?
exactly.
Yeah. It's exactly that sort of thing for a particular kind of guy. Now, most of those guys grow out of that way of thinking because they grow up and they realize that like the world isn't just code and information, and normal people don't give a shit how special your mind is. But there are some boys that never grow out of this way of thinking because they luck into a lucrative career path and they start gaining and influence and power make you go insane. And unfortunately for the world, many of these special boys are able to translate their hacking skill into getting whatever they want. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So in the early 1990s, the first sputterings of the real life metaverse are already percolating into the world through the World Wide Web and the collective activity of early web users. And one of these early internauts is MIT sociologist Sherry Turkle. She has written a huge volume of work about online spaces and how they condition our self-image and our interactions. So in 1994, Turkle published an article in the journal Mind, Culture, and Activity entitled Constructions and Reconstructions of Virtual Reality Playing in the Muds. Capital MUD, MUD, which stands for Multi-User Dungeon. You
I
ever, you
thought
ever heard
so.
that term? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I thought that's what it would stand for.
Yeah, multi-user
It,
dungeon. It's not really a dungeon necessarily. It's just like any space where there's multiple users and they're typing to each other and they're pretending to be in a virtual world together. Multi-user dungeon. There's often no particular goal in the mud. You just have a bunch of people like living there. Uh, and so in her article, Turkle describes a lot of the ways in which muds can be good for people, even if they can become the object of extreme obsession. She interviews a college freshman named Robert who says he's mudding up to 120 hours a week, hardly sleeping, eating all his meals at the computer. He's role playing a character called Achilles, who is very different from himself, and in a very real sense, he sort of becomes more this character Achilles than himself. He's spending far more of his waking hours as Achilles than he is as Robert, which we think of as like sounds pretty unhealthy to me when you describe it that way. But the thing is, after a year of this, he's done. He's used his role playing to process some trauma and some bad relationships from his childhood. He was working through a lot of self identity issues during this year, and he gets a job, he gets an apartment, he starts a band with some friends, he starts to live life. And then, Turkle interviews him and he says that his experience with the mud, playing 120 hours a week, kind of he sees it as a something that like kept him safe from alcoholism and suicidal thoughts, both of which run in his family, because it gave him something else to do with his time, right? Because otherwise he was going into a very dark place. It's just something he did for a year, and then he dropped out of college and made some big changes in his life, and he says it really helped him. And there are a lot of people for whom that who use role playing to like work through questions about who they are, what they value, what it means to be them. For a certain kind of mind, it can be a very powerful experience. Even just this text based thing that people are doing.
and so this is one of the first uses of the muds, correct?
Yes, they
Interesting.
they did not exist until like a year or two before this. This is like a first you have first one of the first things people are doing with the World Wide Web.
Gotcha. And you're a teenager around this time, right?
Yeah.
And Did you have any awareness of virtual reality at this in the
Uh,
mid '90s?
I what in the mid '90s. So I was using what was I doing? I I was using the internet mostly for porn. And so that's its own kind of virtual
That's my uncle.
reality if you think about it. Um, but like there were spaces online that I went into a couple of times where it's like a fantasy game or a science fiction game and you pretend to be somebody else, but mostly I was on I was on IRC a lot, and I was on the Final Fantasy Shrine forums, and their IRC. So I would like talk all night with people all over the country who were obsessed with Final Fantasy VII, like I was.
I mean, you're not like in virtual reality, but that's adjacent
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah. It was a social space where I could act differently than I acted around anybody else in my life that my parents didn't know about, and where like I was I could like almost share a common delusion or common obsession with other people.
Yeah, it's great that yeah, that's an outlet for a lot of people.
Exactly, exactly. Uh, and then eventually I was like over it, right? And that happens to a lot of people too. Um, Another interesting story that Sherry Turkle talks about in this paper is about a mud called Habitat, which is like a peaceful simulated world. But one day somebody programs in guns to the peaceful world. Like, hey, what if
Nice.
we had guns? And uh, it creates this whole huge conversation, because you would think like, oh, now there's guns, it's gonna be like fucking Zardoz, and everything's gonna degrade into chaos, but it doesn't. There ends up being this big conversation about the balance between individual freedom and communal order, and about the nature of good government, and probably shapes a lot of people's real world beliefs through this virtual community, because you get to talk through these things in a space where people aren't actually getting murdered with guns. So like there's a lot that people can do in a virtual world to work through their self-conception, their identity, their relationships with others, that can be very good for people.
I came in very much ready to just fully hate, but already there are,
Uh,
I mean, you're showing me some benefits.
yeah, there's something to be said for it. However, from
Oh,
almost the
here we
very
go.
beginning, there was a darker side to the metaverse. Uh, this is reported vividly by tech journalist Julian Dibble in a 1993 article for the Village Voice entitled "A Rape in Cyberspace." Dibble was a member of a MUD called LambdaMOO, which takes the form of like an enormous virtual house and the grounds around the house. Characters can be anything from like a normal human to a South American trickster spirit to whatever you as a player might think to describe into a text box to put into a text box to describe yourself. And things are pretty peaceful and chill on LambdaMOO in general, but one day there emerges a character called Mr. Bungle, who sort of marches to the beat of his own drum, so to speak. Dibble describes Mr. Bungle as, quote, a bisquick faced clown dressed in cum stained harlequin garb, which is
All right.
a wild way to describe yourself. Might have been a tip off right there that this guy was maybe up to no good.
Yeah, me. But I guess they were like, let's see where this goes.
Yeah, I don't want to judge a book by its cover.
Right. Let's just talk to him.
Bisquick faced is a really wild descriptor. I don't know if that's him describing himself, or but boy, maybe just kick that guy right off the server. uh, anyway, Mr. Bungle gets hold of an in-game object called a voodoo doll, which is programmed in to the game, and it lets him control the actions of other characters in the game. Uh, So he starts using this voodoo doll to force other characters into horrible, degrading sexual acts. I mean, like really sick stuff. Eating their own pubic hair, stabbing themselves in the genitals. It's bad. And he's just
Sucks.
like,
I had high hopes for Mr. Bungle.
yeah, I know, I know, right? I thought he was gonna force people to like give each other nice hugs and tell each other stories and stuff.
Yeah, just
No.
not mad, just disappointed, Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. So he's doing this. He continues doing this until another player, Iggy, shows up with a magical gun that he has that he fires at Mr. Bungle and sends him to like an isolated void in a parallel dimension where his voodoo doll doesn't work anymore. This is all like programmed into the game.
so how is this taking place? Is this text on a screen?
This is people typing on their keyboards and there's text on a screen and like it describes what's happening, in text posts moment to moment.
And so are they trying to like out improvise each other in a way? Like, or are they
What
coding things into the game, or this game has set rules that allow for this?
that's a good question because it definitely has an improvisational theater type element to it. But there's no that there are um the characters in the game are playing according to rules set up in the code by like about well it's like video game essentially so that they can get these objects they can interact with each other they can move from room to room and stuff like that but they can't like uh everybody's like very serious about staying in character because that's very important to a lot of these people who are users of it that like they are the character in a way that when they're playing, and so they only have recourse to the in-game objects and techniques and communication that they have access to as players.
Got it. Okay.
But there are like server admins. There aren't really any moderators, but there are like server admins who are called wizards by the players, and the wizards are like the actual humans in California running the server that LambdaMOO runs on, and they don't involve themselves in like in-game affairs. They run the servers, they fix bugs, but they try not to get involved in like in-game disputes between the characters, right?
Right.
Uh, and so what happens is basically an in-character, in-game trial where the characters meet up in the main common area of the house and try to reach consensus about what should be done to Mr. Bungle. And the wizards agree to carry out whatever punishment the players agree upon. I think this is just fascinating because, like, this is 1993. The web is just coming into existence. And already we're encountering the problems that are going to plague online communities for at least the next 3 decades and probably much longer after that. One of these problems that keeps coming back on the web is at the end of the day, the power to make binding decisions about people's fate in these virtual communities rests with the administrators, like with the wizards. But the administrators don't live in the community. To a wizard, getting rid of Mr. Bungle is just a question of like deleting a row from a database or blocking an IP address from accessing a server, right? To a player, this is a question of life and death. When they're playing, they really are their character. In some cases, even more than they are so in real life. And so, if somebody can be executed in virtual reality, so can they, and that's a very scary thing to them.
Sure. Yeah. It dies with their character, the whole
Right,
persona, and all those feelings.
right, right. They're just gone. And so this mismatch, this disconnect between what's real to the person participating in the game and or the website and what's real to the person running the website becomes like a really big sticking point and still is if you look at like moderation on modern social media platforms and things like that occur in the modern world. So anyway, that's a rape in cyberspace. It's a really good article. If you can find it, I recommend checking it out. It's pretty fascinating. But despite the sociological difficulties with virtual spaces, their popularity grew as the internet grew, which is to say, exponentially. And people have never lost sight of the promise of virtual reality. Even in these like text-based systems where all you're doing is typing text on a page and it's showing up on the web on your screen, you you can create a feeling of presence. That feeling of presence is part of what attracts people to these systems. But it depends entirely on users cooperating to collectively imagine the world and their place in it. No matter how well they do this, no matter how present you might feel as a player, you're always aware that your body is not in the game, right? Your body is sitting in a chair, hunched over a keyboard, probably in a dark room, probably snacking on Doritos, drinking some gamer fuel, right? And so the people of these virtual spaces have always longed for more immersion, technologies that can like trick the body and the mind into believing that they're somewhere they're not. In other words, virtual reality. So, like the metaverse, virtual reality started as fiction. You could go all the way to like Plato's cave, right? People talk about Plato's cave, where you're chained up in a cave and you're just watching a shadow play made by people who are giving you the impression of the world, but they're not really the real objects in the world.
Yeah, the prehistoric admins. Or I guess it wouldn't be prehistoric, but yeah, the wizards.
Yeah,
Just a dude by a fire.
right. And they have like a rack of ribs shaped puppet and that they're holding up, and you're like, ooh, a rack of ribs. Let me get that closer to my mouth, and they make the shadow bigger, and then you feel like I don't know. That's the idea of what Plato's cave is supposed to be. That's kind of a virtual reality experience, right?
Totally.
And so like the idea that like your brain could be tricked into believing it's somewhere you're not. But science fiction really took the idea and ran with it in the 20th century. One I remember distinctly from high school is that we read Aldous Huxley's 1932 novel Brave New World, where characters go to the feelies to be entertained, which are like immersive movies where you can see and hear and feel and smell and taste what's going on in the movie, which of course is often porn, but it's like a virtual reality experience of whatever is in the movie, right?
Oh yeah, I read it. I remember those.
Yeah, it was not too far. Like many of Huxley's predictions, the Feelies were not too far off from reality, or what reality would eventually enable you to do. And so in 1961, just 29 years after the publication of Brave New World, the inventor Morton Heilig files a patent for a device called the Sensorama.
What an inventor name, by the way.
Morton Heilig. Yeah, that
He's doing
rules.
what he was meant to do. Tinker.
Yeah, he couldn't be like a tax accountant.
God no.
Uh, he was a special boy with a special mind. And the Sensorama is basically an arcade cabinet. You sit, there's a stool built into it. You sit at it, you put a coin in, you put your face in a hole, and it uses like a projector to play a little movie for you. So, for example, like first-person footage taken from a dune buggy was one of the movies that it played in. And while the movie's playing, like your seat's vibrating and you're getting air sprayed on your face to simulate wind. It's like 4D, the 4D movie theater
4D
experience.
movies, yeah.
Yeah. It never went anywhere. It was very impractical, but they did build some of these, and I think some of them are still around. So yeah, that's called the Sensorama. That's considered like the first working virtual reality device. And there've been a few more throughout history. MIT had one called the Sword of Damocles, which was the first like head-mounted one where you would actually wear something on your head. So if you turn your head, you see different things, different parts of the room. And it was called the Sword of Damocles, based on a myth about a sword hanging over somebody's head by a tiny thread, because it was so heavy it had to be like suspended from the ceiling by a mechanical arm.
Really choosing the least inviting names imaginable for all of this
Yeah.
technology. Muds. dungeons, Sword of Damocles.
Yeah, it's not. They did not figure out the branding for a long, long time.
Clearly not.
Virtual Boy was the Nintendo one.
Uh-oh.
Virtual Boy. No, thank you.
Your Honor. I did not go near Virtual Boy.
But the technology wasn't good enough that anybody was going to buy it really anyway. Like the the there's a lot of technical hurdles to building worthwhile virtual reality experiences. You need screens small enough to be placed close to the eyes, but that are high resolution enough that you can't see the individual pixels, right? You need extremely accurate sensors for head position and rotation because the image on the screen has to update instantly when you turn your head or move around. Any lag between turning your head and the image updating can cause like severe nausea. Nobody wants to buy a VR game that's going to make them immediately throw up.
It'll be a vomit simulator. So these aren't being made for commercial purposes. These are
Nah, not
just
yet.
research, and the people who can make them are just enjoying the experience.
I think it's researchers. There was a thing called virtuality in the 80s, which was like an arcade, like it's supposed to be like an arcade machine where you that had a virtual reality component to it, but it did not sell. It did not sell well. Like even this is because that's just stuff that like those things, the high resolution screens, the extremely accurate sensors and stuff, that's just for a lab, right? If you want to do consumer grade VR, you have even more difficult problems to solve. Like at the very least, you need to have sensors on the body, because if there's one thing that reminds you you're not really present, it's not having a body. You need, like, if we even have bodies in dreams, you need to have sensors on the hands so people can use their hands. You can't only have sensors on the hands because then you're stuck only displaying the hands with no arms, or you're inferring the arm position from the hand position, which is very hard to do because of all the different ways we can bend our fingers and our hands. And so like if the software gets that inference wrong, then sometimes you look at your arm and it like twists up like a fucking Lovecraftian horror, and again makes you want to barf. All this stuff needs to be lightweight and tiny also, because otherwise it's too heavy and hot to wear on your head for longer than a couple minutes. Yeah, it's really fucking hard, and it hasn't really been solved or even approached having a solution until very recently. Oh yeah. Also, it needs to be affordable. It needs to be battery powered so people don't trip over wires. It needs to be, you need some way to prevent people from smashing their body on every exposed surface in the room when they're moving around, which is still not solved. Meta has tried to solve it by putting cameras on the outside of the helmet and using the footage to like build a 3D model of the room that you're in and like giving you a warning if you're about to smash yourself up. And that still only kind of works in 2026.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen that not working often online, or people like they'll
Yeah.
be in virtual
Yeah.
reality and they have to like jump in the game, and they end up like jumping like through their glass coffee table instead or something.
Yeah, it rules. Uh, and then they have to figure out how to like put that, if they want to not have it be immersive, then they have to like make your leg be all bloody in the VR game so you don't get taken out of the illusion. It's a big pain in the ass. But still, even though this is all so hard and doesn't work well at all, there's just something about the promise of VR that, despite all these difficulties, captivates a certain kind of imagination. Visionary game designer John Carmack, who was founder of id Software, which made Doom and Quake and stuff, for example, he said that, quote, making Snow Crash into a reality feels like a sort of moral imperative to a lot of programmers.
So he's one of the guys who did not understand that the book was like, hey, don't do this, by the way.
Well, interestingly, he does not include himself in that in that quote, at least, he's not saying he feels like making Snow Crash feels like a moral imperative, but he really, like, he's a big VR guy. He definitely believes in the promise of VR. I don't think he's quite as naive as a Mark Zuckerberg, but yeah, he's into it. One other such programmer who really believes in the promise of VR is a guy called Palmer Luckey. Palmer Luckey is born and raised in Long Beach, California. He's the son of a used car dealer and a stay-at-home mom who homeschools him and his three sisters. And by all accounts, Palmer Luckey is like an electronics prodigy. He's from the age of like 11, he's in his parents' garage building coil guns to shoot nails. Eventually, he moves on to experimenting with lasers. And when he's 16 years old, he starts building virtual reality headsets, which is very impressive. But whatever else Palmer Luckey is, and look, he's a lot of things. We'll get to some of those other things that he is, but that's really impressive. And good for his parents for like getting him the resources. They were not wealthy, but they made sure he had the resources to go where his interests took him, which I have to really respect. Now, during this time also, though, Palmer Luckey is developing the politics of a little young Republican debate club shitheel. He'll later claim that at age 13, he read Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, and that drove him to become an entrepreneur. He funds his VR projects by fixing people's iPhones and laptops, and he works as like a sailing coach at the local yacht club.
Guy's a hustler.
He's a hustler, yeah. And he takes all the money that he makes and he puts it into buying up old VR equipment on eBay and modding it in the trailer that he's moved into behind his parents' house, which has no bathroom. He's immediately moves into the trailer. He's like, I need more space for virtual reality headsets. I'm demolishing the bathroom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think hygiene has ever been hyper important to these types of people.
Yeah, no. What do you need a bathroom for? You can shit in VR. You can shit in the metaverse.
Yeah, virtual shits.
Yeah. It gives you kind of an idea of where this kid's head is at.
Yeah, that's what it takes to be great.
Yeah. He tries for a degree. But interestingly, not an engineering degree. He briefly goes to journalism school. I don't know if that would have been any better, given the kind of guy Palmer Luckey is. If he'd gone to journalism school, I think that he might have done equal amount of damage to society.
Moved up the timeline
that way.
Truth Social or something.
Right. Boy. But his obsession pays off because in 2012, this 19-year-old kid has developed a VR headset on his own that is like infinitely better than anything else on the market. It's lower latency, has a way bigger field of vision, like has a 270-degree field of vision compared to the 45-degree field of vision that's considered pretty good at the time. It's just amazing. And it's good enough to catch the attention of John Carmack, the id Software guy that I name dropped earlier, who demos it at a huge gaming conference, and it blows the fuck up. Everybody wants one. Some people want 1,000. It's just a huge hit. So Palmer goes ahead and starts his own company, which is called Oculus.
Wow. And so what year is this again?
That's 2012.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there's just like, there's nothing else for VR. Like Oculus goes crazy with popularity immediately because this thing is so good. Now, meanwhile, in 2012, 400 miles up the coast from Long Beach in Menlo Park, California, another ex-child prodigy is busy running his multi-billion-dollar social network company, Facebook. So by 2012, when Palmer Luckey founds Oculus, Facebook is 8 years old and it's worth over 40 billion smackaroonies. And its founder, Mark Zuckerberg, has earned this impressive market cap through disciplined application of his innovative 3-step business plan, which goes like this. Step 1, get access to a bunch of data that belongs to other people. Step 2, use that data to make those people fight each other. Step 3, make a half-hearted public apology. I mean, he's just iterating. It's really good. It works great.
It's crazy and just a visionary, you know?
Yeah. Nobody tried this before. People tried making sincere apologies. Doesn't fucking work.
No, terrible for business.
He invented this strategy all the way back in 2003 when, as a college sophomore, he, step 1, hacked a bunch of internal Harvard student directories. Step 2, uploaded his classmates' photos to a website where everyone could vote on who's hotter. And then step 3, apologized in a school newspaper by saying, quote, "I apologize for any harm done as a result of my neglect to consider how quickly the site would spread and its consequences thereafter. I definitely see how my intentions could be seen in the wrong light."
Nice little humble brag baked into that.
Yeah.
I didn't know it'd be so awesome.
Right. How was I supposed to know that I was a website genius?
Right.
Beautiful. Works every time.
Yeah. Well, it's nice that he's, reformed from all that behavior.
Yeah, well, we could if anybody's interested in hearing about more Mark Zuckerberg terrible public apologies, I made a TikTok about it. Like I said, Tech Blows on TikTok. It's Mark Zuckerberg's 3 worst public apologies ranked. Go check it out.
How many do you have to go through?
Like 18.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think I picked the right ones. But there's just so many to choose from. He's out there every day becoming the world champion of terrible public apologies. You got to respect it. So anyway, by 2012, Zuckerberg has repeated this cycle a handful of times, and it has started to make him a very rich man. Facebook has just cracked 1 billion users worldwide. 1 billion users, and in 2012, that's roughly 1 in 7 people in the goddamn world is on Facebook. And at this scale, Facebook is no longer just a website where you share life updates with your friends. It becomes like the primary online record of who you are. Right? Like if you want to know who somebody is, what makes that person tick in 2012, you look them up on Facebook. Because people just really put details of all their whole life up on their favorite movies and music, their marriages, their divorces, their political opinions, their non-political opinions, the whole timeline of their career. It's all in Facebook's database. So for the first time in history, you can get a highly detailed biography on a random stranger if you have access to Facebook's data set.
I remember the anxiety around making my first Facebook profile. It was a big deal.
Why did you feel anxiety about it?
Because you are basically you're deciding what you want to represent yourself as to the world, And this would have been in middle school, which is a time when that's already all you're thinking about. So who am I? And so you launch your Facebook profile and you end up choosing the wrong persona for sure, without a doubt. I mean,
How could you possibly?
Never has anybody gotten it right on the first try.
Right.
But
you're like, who am I? Okay, let me figure this out. Anderson Gronvold is a Bisquick-faced clown dressed in cum-stained Harlequin garb.
Exactly. So I wish my early Facebook page was at that level of embarrassment and not worse.
Yeah. And so people are putting a lot of thought into this, but they're also being, they want to be authentic, so they're including a lot of details about who they actually are. And that opens up a lot of opportunity for Mark Zuckerberg in the form of advertising, right? Advertisers want to know who you are and what makes you tick because that lets them get better yield on their ads. So the kind of information Facebook has access to is unbelievably valuable to advertisers. They want this real bad. But being the biggest social network in the world isn't all just making billions of dollars and fucking up and crying about it. Mark Zuckerberg has problems too. one of his biggest problems is that, sure, Facebook has a billion users, but Facebook is still dependent on the other companies' platforms to reach those users. Meaning, like, Facebook doesn't make smartphones or laptops or operating systems. Those are made by companies like Apple and Google and Microsoft. So, for example, when an Android user like buys a pirate hat for their cow in Farmville, which is an old Facebook game. Do you know about Farmville?
Oh, I know about Farmville. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
My experience with Farmville is that pledging a fraternity in college, one of the semester-long tasks was 2 pledges had to like keep a productive farm for the entirety of the semester, which is no light load, let me tell you.
Jesus. So you might buy a pirate hat for your cow, and when you do that, you're paying real money, and Google gets 30% of that money. That just goes straight into Google's pocket because Google owns the Android platform, right? Which Mark Zuckerberg hates, of course, because he thinks he deserves more of that money. You know, he knitted that cow hat with his own supple hands. He should get all the money.
Man.
And also because Facebook doesn't own the platforms, they can't make as much money selling ads as they wish they could make, because information about users is what makes Facebook profitable. And Apple and Google don't want to give away information about their users for free. You know, Facebook would like to own your Photos app. They'd like to know what you're doing in all the different apps on your phone, because that would make them a lot more money. And they can't get at that stuff. You know, there's security barriers. So around 2014, 2015, Mark Zuckerberg is thinking deeply about how to solve this problem. And it's a problem to him. It's not a problem to like us, right? It's not a real problem, but it's like
Not at all.
occupies 100% of Mark Zuckerberg's brain in 2014, 2015. And we know about this because we have this internal memo from June of 2015 called Mark's Vision, which was leaked by a tech journalist, Blake Harris, who got access to it while he was writing his 2019 book, The History of the Future. And he got this memo and he leaked it to TechCrunch. And the memo is basically Mark Zuckerberg laying out why Facebook's next big bet needs to be on virtual reality. He says, quote, "Our vision is that VR AR is augmented reality. It's like, instead of virtual reality, it's like you're in the actual reality, but it's displaying other virtual stuff on top of it, sort of."
Right, like you can see your real room, but then there's like a little penguin in the corner.
Yes, jacking it.
Yeah, as we programmed him to.
Yeah, works perfectly. Advertisers are gonna love this. So VR. So he says, our vision is that VR AR will be the next major computing platform after mobile in about 10 years, which means like he expects VR is going to supplant mobile as the main way people use the internet, just like mobile supplanted laptops and desktops earlier. And he expects this is going to happen by 2025. And they let him spend billions, tens of billions of dollars based on this idea.
Yeah, but it's okay because everybody in the world has water already, clean water and food. So, you know, we're playing with house money here.
That's right. You know, technology ran out of problems to solve in the real world. Now we got to solve them in the virtual
Now we have
world.
fun problems.
Yes, right. I don't know. This is just incredible to me that like senior leadership at Facebook just let Mark Zuckerberg run with this, because it only takes you've talked to any like anybody normal, any person. It only takes a second of thinking and for people to realize like this is absolutely never going to happen, right? I don't know about you, Anderson, but of the people I know personally, I can count easily on one hand the number who would willingly spend more than 10 minutes a day in a virtual reality helmet, much less shift a significant part of their life to virtual reality or spend a significant amount of money there, right?
The only people I know who have virtual reality bought it to make internet sketches making fun of it. That is the sole use.
Right. And we're in the sweet spot, right? You and I
the target
are
demo.
Like the target demo for VR.
100%.
I'm a 40-something with disposable income and nerdy who likes, code and computers, and I don't know, I think I know maybe two people who would do this.
Yeah.
So the target market has to be vanishingly small unless you go out of your way to assume things about humanity that are just demonstrably untrue. Anyway, another fucking unhinged thing that Zuckerberg says in this memo is, quote, once you have a good VR/AR system, you no longer need to buy phones or TVs or many other physical objects. They can just become apps in a digital store. Right?
I don't even think I follow that.
Well, it's like, why buy a TV? Why buy a TV when you can buy a virtual Facebook TV and just pop on your VR goggles every time you feel like watching some Netflix?
Yeah. Gotcha. So you could live in a bare room
Yes.
with like no real furniture. Finally, yeah. No bathroom because you can just get the bathroom app
Right.
in Meta.
Right. Right.
And then you can get
just piss onto your phone.
Right. And if you get like the smell modification with the glasses, then you can, don't even worry about it.
Yeah, just pop in the patented Oculus nasal cannula.
Yeah, just shoot some lavender up there.
It's an incredible thing to believe. And then Facebook can track everything you watch and serve ads that are built into the TV, right? Or even like built into reality itself. I mute if I happen to be watching something where there are ads, I mute the TV. But now Facebook can just like make the ad float in space in front of the TV and emit sound directly into your ears.
I mean, look, if you take away any assumptions that a normal person would have for this, it does sound amazing. It does sound incredible. It could work if we all thought like Mark.
Well, I I don't know. I just think it's sick that once companies reach a certain size, they can't survive anymore by just like making a good thing that people like. Their strategy has to become about finding ways to like siphon ever more value out of society through like rent seeking and tricks.
Right. It's like, how can we get a Taco Bell ad on this man's wall?
Yeah.
Or just, yeah, like really like insane late stage capitalism level thoughts.
Sick stuff. And so Mark Zuckerberg's in this mood. He believes VR is going to be the next great battlefield of technological empire. And so he buys Palmer Luckey's VR headset company, Oculus, which he does in 2014 for 2 billion smackaroonies. And Oculus becomes an arm of Facebook called Reality Labs. So the Oculus Rift, the flagship headset, becomes the Meta Quest, or it's the direct precursor of the Meta Quest, which is what it is now. And over the next few years, Facebook buys a lot more than that. In June of 2021, they buy Unit 2 Games and Big Box VR, which is another game company. They buy Downpour Interactive, making the maker of the VR shooter Onward. They buy a shitload of companies. These are just a few of them. And they even get in a little trouble with the FTC for anti-competitive practices for buying all these companies. They want to buy Unity, which is like a game development platform, but they can't afford it, and Unity goes public in 2020. So that kind of blows up a big part of their strategy. But what are they actually like doing with all these VR companies that they're buying up between 2014 and 2022? Well, one thing they're doing is they're filing a lot of patents, a lot of which have to do with VR. So many of these are for inventions that are, not gonna lie, pretty sick. I really like one of them that is for a virtual garment capable of jamming user movement. This basically describes like a haptic glove where, say, for example, you pick up a coffee mug in the metaverse and the fingers of your real world glove will resist the curling of your fingers past a particular point. So it feels like you're holding a coffee mug, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I would be concerned that like, what happens if the glove malfunctions and locks up and now I can't get my hand out of my meta glove? And now like I have to go to the hospital for them to like saw my VR glove off my hand? I don't know.
That's a tough medical bill to swallow.
Yeah. I guess there's more embarrassing things that you could go to the ER for. Another one of these patents is one called filed in July of 2017 called "Determining Appearances of Objects in a Virtual World Based on Sponsorship of Object Appearances," which is less cool. So, like, say you're walking through a park in the metaverse and there's a fountain in the park, and you look at the fountain. So, at the moment you look at the fountain, the glasses, the Meta Quest can like use eye tracking to tell you're looking at the fountain, and then advertisers can automatically place real-time bids to change the appearance of that fountain just for you. So, and like cover it with ads for like the new season of Love is Blind, or make the water come out in the shape of the Geico lizard or whatever.
That's so crazy. So you could be in like France and you're like looking at the Eiffel Tower, and then it turns into like a Baja Blast or something.
Yeah, man.
Sweet. That's awesome.
They finally cracked it. Yeah, basically every part of the world, every part of the virtual world, or if you're using the AR, the Facebook Meta Ray-Bans, the real world can become like Times Square, except worse, because the objects themselves are going to change appearance dynamically as you look at them. Man, this sounds like a place I'm really going to want to spend hours of my life every day.
Yeah, that's insane. I'm gonna say I love that our first instinct is like, hey, let's develop first of all the technology where we can create any world we want, and then let's make it Times Square, where where everybody wants to spend more time.
Right. What do normal people want? It's not even what do normal people want, right? It's like what can what can I get away with turning the world into, right?
Totally. And it's like a weird Blade Runner type
right. Right.
conclusion.
Except
Crazy.
as we'll talk about in part 2, like it's not cool in any of the ways Blade Runner is cool either. Like it, but we'll get to it. Like it sucks shit, but it doesn't suck shit in any fun ways.
Right. Not enough to like, take it with a grain of salt.
Right. So this is the kind of hijinks that Facebook is going to be able to get up to thanks to the Oculus Rift. But the Oculus Rift isn't the only rift shaping the future of Facebook's metaverse aspirations in the late 2010s, because in March of 2017, an irreparable rift has formed between Mark Zuckerberg and Palmer Luckey. And so Palmer Luckey moves on from Facebook. He has not helped his popularity within Facebook by driving a tan Humvee to work with machine gun mounts on it, with toy guns attached to the machine gun mounts. The other Facebook employees called the cops about that.
Yeah, we went woke. Sometime this country went woke. It's a shame.
And to make matters worse, in 2016, Palmer Luckey contributes $10,000 to a pro-Trump Reddit clique called Nimble America, which describes itself as dedicated to proving that, quote, shitposting is powerful and meme magic is real. Which is like chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't think that'd be that big a problem, but when Facebook leadership finds out that Luckey is a Trump supporter, they get all pissy. They're like, "Oh my God, Palmer, I can't believe you support Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the bad orange man," right?
Yeah. We thought that was a liberal Humvee.
Right. Right. Zuck actually tries to get Luckey to support Gary Johnson, the Libertarian presidential candidate, which I just think is very funny. It's like,
he's like, meet me halfway.
Yeah, right. Like, why does nobody, like, sure, people care, but what can they do? These guys have all the money. They're not gonna, like, the world, everybody knows you're allowed to do whatever you want when you have billions of dollars. Who cares? Anyway, Luckey gets fired basically, and he calls up his lawyer, and his lawyer says, "Hey, Facebook, did you know it's illegal to fire someone for their political activity in California?" And so Luckey gets about $100 million settlement out of this.
Oh, it's good. He needed it.
Yeah, that's great.
It is funny that the law even has to like protect people with actually terrible political beliefs.
Absolutely.
But
yeah, I mean, it's California. I think is maybe the only state where that's like not legal to do. Like I think you can. I think in most places you can fire somebody for their political statements or their political opinions.
yeah,
But not
like
California.
no, you can support Mr. Bungle for Senate as much as you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
And you better not get fired over it.
Say what you will about Mr. Bungle's policies. He's a hard worker. He gets out there, he gets shit done. I don't know. This is just like now we're seeing how much of Donald Trump's boot Mark Zuckerberg is willing to lick himself. I mean, like it's really embarrassing. And it's just funny that there was so much hand wringing about this within Facebook, and now it's just like, well, yeah, obviously we need to suck up to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the president.
Right.
Anyway, so in the late 2010s, in addition to filing lots of patents, Facebook is also doing a lot of marketing to hype up the idea of VR. And in September of 2017, they get the perfect opportunity to show off the promise of their investments. You know, opportunity can come in many forms if you're bold enough to reach out and grab it. So this marketing opportunity comes in the form of Hurricane Maria, a tropical cyclone that slams Puerto Rico, causing almost $100 billion in damage and killing roughly a 9/11's worth of people. And Mark Zuckerberg,
what a unit of measurement.
It's real bad.
Yeah,
it's like a bad one. And Mark Zuckerberg looks at this tragedy that's this 3,000 people dead and you know maybe 100,000 displaced, and he says to himself, "Oh hell yeah, this is like really gonna goose my brand." And I'm gonna play you some of that promo video that Facebook releases in October of 2017 at the height of recovery efforts for Hurricane Maria, which I'll remind you killed a 9/11's worth of people.
All right. Hey, everyone. We are live in virtual reality. We are in Facebook Spaces, and I am here with Rachel, who runs the social virtual reality team at Facebook.
Yep. Hi, everybody.
Here they are. They're in their VR avatars.
In the last year, there's a lot of people are using Spaces, this tool that you and your team have built to do interviews and Q&As in VR, and to go places that it wouldn't be possible to necessarily go, or definitely would be a lot harder to go in real life.
Exactly.
He just has zero charisma. It's incredible.
Love that it transfers to virtual reality too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the first place that we want to go today is Puerto Rico to check out this interesting 360 video that NPR took of what's going on down there. So let's go quickly teleport there. All right, so now we are in a 360 video in Puerto Rico, and we're on a bridge here. It's flooded. You can get a sense of some of the damage here that the hurricanes have done.
People washing clothes in the river.
People rummaging through rubble to salvage some rags.
I mean, this is one of them, even I think in the same building in the physical world
We're
here.
in
But
totally
I mean,
different
we're
places.
here. I mean, it feels like we're in the same place and we're making eye contact.
but
We're talking to each other.
We could high five.
Yeah,
if
there
we
you go.
wanted
High
to,
five.
and-
Got to do a high five.
So today we're actually announcing a new effort that we've been working on with the Red Cross to help out in Puerto Rico, which is we use artificial intelligence to build what we call these population maps. So you can look at satellite imagery of an area and get a sense of where it is that people actually live and the density of different places and where there's infrastructure going to those places. And that's going to help the Red Cross figure out where people are who need help and figure out how to connect them and get the relief people connected with the people who need help down there.
Yeah, don't follow the sounds of the screams. First, you're going to want to connect into our satellite that's, still being beta tested.
That was never used. As far as I can tell, the Red Cross never used it. They were like, "Oh, thank you.
Good to know."
Like, we already know where the people live, but thanks." Yeah, people hated it. They there was a huge public outcry, and This is another thing that Mark Zuckerberg had to issue a public apology for. This time, he apologized in a Facebook comment. He says, quote, "One of the most powerful features of VR is empathy. My goal here was to show how VR can raise awareness and help us see what's happening in different parts of the world. Reading some of the comments, I realized this wasn't clear, and I'm sorry to anyone this offended."
I'm sorry to anybody not smart enough to understand.
Yeah. You must just not understand empathy if you didn't like this video. That kicks ass.
That missed me. That is, yeah, that's one of the crazier things I've seen, which there's a lot to say in the modern world.
After watching it a couple times, I started to think maybe that they realized at the very beginning, right around the beginning, that it's like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't good. But they had to finish it. They look around, they're like, so here we are in Puerto Rico.
Right. And that's why she's toggling the background.
Yeah.
She's like, which one doesn't have bodies in the background?
Yeah. Yeah, it fucking rules. So yeah, that's where we're going to leave it this week, Anderson, with Facebook apologizing for the cardinal sin of promoting empathy through their marketing. And next week, in part 2, we'll see all this investment in the next big computing platform of VR start to bear fruit, and what fruit it will bear.
Yum.
Thanks for coming on, Anderson. Let's let the people know again where they can find your shit online.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Just throw me a follow, Instagram, Anderson_Gronvold. Good luck with the spelling. And yeah, this was fun. I can't wait for part 2 to hear about part 3.
Oh man, you're gonna love it. So go follow my nephew on Instagram. He's very funny. And also, smash that like and subscribe on Technology Blows if you're watching this on YouTube, so you don't miss the rest of this 3-part series on Horizon Worlds. Get at us on social media too. Tech Blows on TikTok and Blue Sky. Technology Blows on YouTube and LinkedIn. And most importantly, buy ads on Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg needs your money. Don't let Mark Zuckerberg down.
Plug in.
Yeah.
Go inside, plug in, and buy something.
Yep. Put on your Meta
For
Quest.
empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and get rid of your bathroom. You don't need it.
Nope. Don't need a bathroom. Just shit wherever. All right. See you next week, listeners. Peace and love.